What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Geeky Gecko Creations video. I was thinking about doing this as a live stream, but I think it would be more difficult to get my points across. So I'm doing it as a pre-recorded video, but I am very desiring and open to hear your guys' thoughts on this below. So the topic is that cancel culture is not always bad. And I really had to think about this for a second because I have been one of the people at the forefront of cancel culture for the last couple of years because I can be a little bit forthright with my content, a little bit edgy with my content. Um, I don't listen a lot of times to people, because I have my own ideas and I want to run with them. But there's a time and a place, which is a lot of time and a place, to be submissive and humble to those who came before you. And that was something that I don't want to say I completely rejected, but I had a hard time with in the beginning of this hobby. And beginning, I mean, beginning of my real entering into this hobby where I was like, I'm going to make content. I'm going to make a business out of this. Because as a content creator, you sort of blaze your own path, right? Maybe there's other content creators that you engage with, but my content started as educational based stuff. And there really wasn't a big issue with any of my content until I started making and talking about more like controversial stuff. And I think there's always going to be controversial topics in the hobby, right? Today it's the spider gene. It's, we could go so many different directions, bioactive versus tub, more space versus less space, what's best to breed animals in versus what's best to keep animals in, what genes to work with or not work with, to talk about or not talk about. There's a lot of different topics that I think will always be controversial, but and I wrote this down because I thought it's very beneficial. Content creators should all strive to be like Brian, the GOAT, the legend, Brian Barczyk. Brian was somebody who started his content from a very like warehouse based low enrichment type setting for the animals. If you go back to his earliest videos, you can see why a lot of people were giving him a hard time. But he did something extremely, extremely crucial in his content creation. He made a gigantic pivot that made so many people love him and brought so many people into reptiles and educated and entertained so many people with reptiles. As breeders, if we only show the low enrichment side of things or how things used to be, maybe some of us, are still doing things that way. I'm still breeding in tubs, right? One day I would love to get to the place where if I could breed in actual cages, bioactive cages, I would love that. I'm brainstorming a ton on how to make that possible in my own operation. For now, I have everything in tubs and I'm trying my best to upgrade everybody to the biggest size tub that I can based on my collection. And that might take a little bit of time. But that is my goal, is to give every animal as much enrichment as possible for what they give us back in return. They're giving us the joy of working with reptiles for a living, working with reptiles for fun, whatever it might be for you. And in return, we could give them the best of what we are able to give them care-wise, enrichment-wise, which I think that's always going to change, right? There's been a topic lately whether leopard geckos should be kept in groups because they're kept in groups in the wild. And so that's a part of the enrichment in their brain that might be nice for them to explore in captivity. So I'm not going to go too far down any one rabbit path, but this video is just kind of to talk about the accountability of cancel culture. So I actually had a really good conversation with somebody lately, and I don't know, it just really in that conversation, it was a 4-hour conversation. And in the first couple hours, we really didn't get anywhere in the conversation, me and this other person. We were kind of talking at each other, maybe not listening to each other, maybe hashing up some old bad memories from the past, because uh, there are things in this hobby that people will say about you that might not be true, and then others hear that and they think it's true, and it skews their interaction with you, right? And this person had always given me the benefit of the doubt for the most part, and I was always really appreciative of that. Um, they even told me a year ago, they're like, "Hey Frank, you got to stop being so controversial." And in my head, I'm not a controversial person. Like if you talk to me, if um, I'm very like non-judgmental and all that kind of stuff. But I think I get it now. Like I get the importance, especially as large content creators, that we try to be as much as possible on the same page as what is mainstream accepted in the hobby. And as things change, that you adapt with those changes. So like everybody right now is changing over to like more enrichment, bigger enclosures for their animals. As that change happens, you kind of want to be on that bandwagon. Otherwise, on the other bandwagon, you're going to be highly critiqued and highly rejected, and you might find it tough to engage with the hobby that's moving forward, because every hobby should be moving forward, right? The reptile hobby is just such a new hobby that there's growing pains when a hobby is growing. And right now we are in this in between stage of like old school keeping and breeding versus what new people in the hobby want to see and what they want breeders to be doing in their operations, right? And so if you are on the forefront of renovation and expanding the possibilities of enrichment for our animals, I think that's only going to paint you in the best light possible. It's going to make you the most likable. It's going to make you the most influential. It's going to make you the most relatable and collaborable. I don't know if that's a word, but you can collab with most people in the hobby to continue to expand the knowledge of reptiles. Otherwise, you might be on your own, or you might be completely rejected, or you might be canceled, you know? Um, I I do think in personal reflection of myself. Hold on, I got a notepad here so I could kind of stick to like the the foundations that I want to touch on in this video. Um, I do think personally myself, I should have definitely been way more respectful to the overall opinions and perspectives of those who came before me when I first came into this hobby. I was like not super young physically. I think when I first really got gung ho in this hobby, I was probably like 28 or 29. So I was like an older person already, but I was really excited about the hobby. And I saw that there was not a lot of content creation for leopard geckos at that time. And I really just ran with it. And as I ran with it, I ran into roadblocks and people that were trying to direct me, one way or the other. And whether I completely agreed with those people or not, I should have listened, because if I listened, it would have avoided me a lot of heartache and backlash and trouble that has come my way over the years for being a little bit edgy or controversial in some of my content that I talk about or content that I produce, right? Recently, I would say the most controversial thing that happened with me was when I had my ball python leopard gecko video. And honestly, I really don't think this came from a bad place. I was just really excited to be back from a trip. And I was like, hey, I want to show off a number of ball pythons I have as well as leopard geckos that I have. And I really didn't anticipate that anything would get crazy. But some of the ball pythons were like slithering away pretty quickly, and some of the leopard geckos were like jumping out pretty quickly. At that point, I could have made a change. I could have used a lid, I could have used less geckos, but I decided not to. And that was definitely a mistake. And I'm very regretful for that. Um, somebody was able to capture a video of us, kind of like frantically handling the animals. And it just didn't look good. It wasn't a good look for me. It wasn't a good look for our hobby as a representation. And so everybody went on the attack, and immediately I felt really defensive again, because I know I care about these animals. I know I love these animals. And when people are coming after you with very harsh criticism, it's very difficult in that moment to not want to defend yourself. I wish there was a PR team for reptiles. Honestly, USARC, if you ever hear this, I wish there was an actual PR team for reptiles. And here is your PR team, because USARC is full. They have their hands full enough already with everything going on their plate. Your PR team is your inner circle of respected breeders. So if you want to be an up and coming breeder, you could surely go off and do it on your own. But you're only going to be so successful, and you're only going to limit yourself to the doors that will be open if you are closing off doors with other people along the way because of your controversy or because of your stubbornness, right? And really, without intending to do so, that's kind of what I've been doing over the last couple of years. You know, um, I've been making a lot of content. I've been doing a lot of leopard gecko and reptile based things, but I haven't been prioritizing establishing foundational relationships with peers in the hobby that are on the same page as me, whether they're breeders that are like just starting out like I was a few years ago, or breeders that came before me. That would have been monumentally game changing for us in the beginning. Now, we did create a lot of content in the style that I created content, and we did amass a large following and still have a large following through that. But in reflection, we can always improve. And that obviously includes me. I'm really talking about me here. And for the longest time, I guess I was always like, I'm not the problem. It's not me. It's the other people that are the problem, right? And there's always two sides to every story. A lot of things that have happened in this hobby between like me and some other people, I don't ever think it's like one person's fault, right? I definitely think there's enough blame to go around, but you can only change your actions. You can only be accountable to your actions. And when others are talking to you, use both ears that you have to listen and not be hasty to make rash decisions. And if you start to get pushback or start to get friction, double listen, because you might start to be going down a path of high resistance. And no matter how much you try to fight down that path of high resistance, it's not going to get you to the destination that you ultimately want. And for me, the destination that I ultimately want is collaboration with my peers. And in my conversation with this person that I spoke to for 4 hours, In the last 2 hours, we had a ton of breakthrough, a tremendous amount of breakthrough where we were each able to talk to each other, understand each other. I can't speak on behalf of him, but I dare say respect each other. We seem to really have a good conversation, whereas the first 2 hours were very, very frictional. Actually, I thought we were going to hang up and we were going to get nowhere, but somehow we both held on to that conversation. And 2 hours into the conversation, we made tremendous breakthrough. And it just really helped me realize that is what I want with everybody. I don't want to be an individual brand. I don't want to be an individual creator. I want to be somebody that other people could be proud of, to say, hey, I'm friends with this person. And if you're doing controversial things, saying controversial things, going against the grain, it's really tough for people to do that, even if they do like you, respect you, and want to consume your content and be around you. So sometimes, another person that I spoke to before this person recently was talking to me about, they knew about my faith in God and everything. So they shared with me a scripture about pride, how pride comes before a fall. And I know that scripture. I've preached that scripture so many times under so many different Bible studies and circumstances. But sometimes when you're in the midst of things, it's very hard to see where you are making mistakes. And that's where good counsel and good friends in this hobby can really help you. But you have to listen, and sometimes, if you are one of those good friends and good council members, then I thank you, first of all. And I would encourage you to not give up on the people that you have hope in, because sometimes, like myself, I was just feeling so attacked from so many different directions. I just kept making a stronger and stronger stance in my stubbornness, if that makes sense, because I just felt, and I can't talk really to the accuracy of this because this topic can go very deep. But the way that I felt inside was I felt so much like injustice and pushback for no reason for certain things, right? Over the last few years that I've been making content, that it made me more and more stubborn and more like hard-hearted to changing my ways or making improvements to my content, making improvements to the way we promote reptile keeping and breeding. And I've always been someone that, tells people, like, do the most for your reptiles. Every time I sell a reptile to somebody, I'm always encouraging them to use UVB, large amounts of space, enrichment, all of that kind of stuff. But you as the breeder have to prioritize that too, because people mimic what they see. And so over the next couple years, as our operation continues, I have a lot of ideas in mind of how I can improve our operation and enrichment that we give our animals in a breeding operation, such as like lighting, like UV lighting and stuff like that in like a rack system, or making custom PVC cages. I've been making those custom PVC racks, but can I make custom PVC cages that are meant to be like one per animal, or maybe a couple females that live in there and they have access to enrichment and dirt to dig in and UV, but it's very breeder friendly because it's done in an efficient manner. So breeders can still clean, collect eggs, all that kind of stuff. And so I think the more that I can do that, the more that that's also a really good representation and example for people that are coming into the hobby. So let me get back to my note card here because I feel like I've veered off a little bit. Uh, one thing I wanted to mention, one of the reasons people get so defensive in the reptile hobby is because it is a competitive hobby. There's no way around that. Especially in the leopard gecko world is very competitive. But there is plenty of business for everyone, especially if you are doing things correctly. If you are collabing with your peers, they'll always be buying from you. You'll always be buying from them. Their customers will be buying from them. Their customers will be buying from you because people want diversity. People need diversity. You can't just buy all your geckos from one person. So because of that, you want to be collabed up and linked up with other people in your hobby so that you can share business with each other. And there's plenty of business to go around because a lot of people wind up getting out of the hobby or not making a full-time business out of it. And if you're a niche hobbyist breeder that just wants to make a little extra income on the side, you could choose to work with things that are niche and people will see that and respect that and like that. And there's a lot of ways that you can make yourself stand out, but you can't make yourself stand out if nobody is willing to hang in with you. And if nobody is proud to call you their friend and recommend you, right? So you do have to get along with people in this hobby, whether you completely agree or don't agree. It's okay. You could check that pride at the door for the betterment of the animals and the hobby as a whole. There's a lot of positive movements going on right now in the hobby as far as like the style of care and enrichment that people are wanting to see and dare I say needing to see. So that's a good thing. All of this is because of cancel culture. Without cancel culture, it would be very hard to be accountable because everyone, for the most part, would probably just stay stuck in their stubborn ways, you know? Ever since my ball python leopard gecko video where things got a little chaotic and people clipped those clips and shared them on the internet and said a lot of things about me that I think could have been more thoughtful. But at the same time, they were just doing what they thought was right and what they thought would work in that specific scenario. Maybe had I proven myself teachable or listenable, I'm gonna make that word up, listenable from the start, they wouldn't have felt the need to go to such an extreme to try to make us look bad or really hammer in a point to like cancel us, right? The point of cancellation, I think, for a lot of people is when they feel like they're not being heard or respected or listened to. And so I've been really thinking about this a lot. Your peers are very important in this hobby, especially the upper tier peers. And like I said, whether you completely agree with what they're telling you or not, if they have a strong opinion about it, and others have a strong opinion about it, it would be pretty wise for you to have a strong opinion about it to get along with what their opinion is. You know, and again, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree or that you don't have your reasons to go a different way, but you might want to sacrifice those reasons for the betterment of your relationship with those people because they are powerful people in the hobby, very influential. And you don't want to be causing unnecessary friction for yourself or others. A lot of innocent bystanders get caught up in the mix of cancel culture, right? They stick with the people they like, and then the people on the opposite side are fighting it out. So then the fans of each side start fighting it out, and it makes USARK's job harder at the end of the day because our hobby can appear to be more decisive than I think it actually is. Now, cancel culture and accountability is what this video is about. Cancel culture holds influencers and breeders accountable to the most accepted practices of the current time in the hobby. Because if someone tries to cancel you for doing something that is very popular, it won't work, because you're going to get a bunch of people that defend that person, such as what happened with Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles recently. A lot of people went after him that did not agree with cohabitation. But then a ton of people stood up for him that agreed with cohabitation under specific situations. And so no cancellation actually took place for the most part, because the hobby is at an odds of that topic. But there are certain topics in the hobby that are not at odds. And one easy example of that is like feeding live animals, like mammals, to reptiles on camera. The vast majority of the hobby sees that as something that you just don't want to do. 90 to 95% of the hobby is aware that if you feed a live rat or mouse on camera to a snake, it's going to be very bad for you. And because it's very bad for you, the pushback's going to be so bad, even if they feel like they personally don't have a problem with it, they're going to stick on this side. So if you, in the 5 to 10% of people over here, try to go up against that 90%, you're going to lose 10 times out of 10. You cannot do it unless you want to just stay in this circle of 10% down here, which I'm just speaking for myself. I don't want to be in the smaller percentage of accepted practices. I want to be in the larger percentage of accepted practices, promotion, education, entertainment, all that kind of stuff. That's where I want to be. So for me to accomplish that, I have to be very respectful to the people that are already there and what they hold valuable. So I am sorry to the people that I have not respected fully in that category right there. I should have gave you guys a lot more credit in the beginning and really listen to you guys more in the beginning. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, right? Let me see what else do I have here. Okay, so I already touched on this, but the care and the handling of our reptiles on camera. So ever since that whole really explosion of what happened after the whole ball pythons and leopard geckos on camera, and me kind of frantically trying to control things so that none of the animals would get away, after that happened, there was a big push for accountability for me to make sure that that never happens again. And I've never done that again since then. I realized that that was a mistake for me to underestimate how frantic 10 animals can get in front of me at once. You would think that that would be common sense, but I kind of just let my excitement in the moment and just kind of like chalant attitude get in the way of that. And then, I will admit I did it 2 days in a row. So I did it the first day, I think, for a couple hours, and then the second day for another hour, thinking that I would pull out like different animals or that I would be able to change things and kind of be like, look, see, it's okay. I just, underestimated this the day before, and that wasn't the case. It just made it worse when I did it the next day. And so I did it 2 days in a row. I think it was 2 days in a row. It was YouTube and TikTok on the first day. And then I got a lot of pushback for that. And then I went live the next day on Instagram and I did the same thing, I believe. And I'm really sorry for that, because not only does that show like absolute stubbornness on my part, I think I was just, like I said, for the longest time, I've been in this stance of hard-heartedness, and almost to the point of like, the more that somebody would push me to like not do something, the more that I would try to be like, no, I can do that. And that is not the best mentality to have in anything in life, reptiles included. And so I am really sorry for that. Um, so everybody knows who they are that was kind of involved in that inference. My cat is scratching at the door, so let me just let her in real quick. Okay. I don't think I'm going to edit this video because I don't have a lot of time on my hands, in trying to take care of over 1,000 or 1,500 reptiles over here right now. I am very thankful for our current team over here that does a great job, and I can't say anything against them, but there's still a lot of things that I need to do myself to keep everything going, to make sure all the animals are taken care of. And it's a lot, so I really appreciate the people that felt like they had to present their feelings in such a strong way regarding me and some of the things that I talk about or say, or, some of the things that I've done, such as the whole ball python leopard gecko handling thing. Because without your strong opinions, I wouldn't have got to this place that I'm at now, where like I truly appreciate the direction the hobby's going. When I first came into the hobby 6 years ago, all the videos that I was studying was older style videos. And that became who I am today. Tubs, racks, like older style keeping. And not to say that there's anything wrong with tubs or racks, but I do think as much as possible that we should always be looking to make improvements, whether it's bigger tubs or more enriching tubs, or, which could be like light or textures like rocks and wood and substrate and stuff like that. That's the direction that the hobby is really moving in. And that's the direction that I really want to promote as much as possible, which is difficult because I grew up in this hobby with all of my inspiration being from older style keeping. So I became an older style keeping promoter, right? And now I see that there is a tremendous amount of benefit in new age style reptile keeping promotion. One of the other people that I was talking to before this last person that I was talking about, when I was on the phone with them, they said, yeah, racks will be gone in 10 years. And I was like, nah, I don't think so. And I still really don't know what my thoughts are on that. But there is definitely two trains of thought right now that are really pushing against each other. You got your investors in the hobby that just want to put their animals in tubs and the most efficient setup. And then you got new people coming in that actually, the reason they're coming into the hobby is not because they want to make $1 million breeding different genetics and creating the first morph of this or the first morph of that. They want to work with like locality specific or species specific animals and dress them up in their cages the nicest that they can. And that when someone walks into their home, they want to be able to show off a wall of animals that says, hey, these things are cool, right? You can't show off a wall of tubs and your average person that is unfamiliar with reptiles is like, oh, that's real cool, keeping an animal in a box, right? So, and again, no judgment to where the hobby is right now and the vast amount of rack systems that take place. But one word of encouragement, maybe for rack developers and breeders, if you aren't already, which I would imagine a lot of them are, I think it would be extremely beneficial if they considered starting to make models of racks that were more enriching, right? Like light in there, different style heating, maybe like bulb accessibility versus under tank accessibility, texture enrichment. There's a lot of different paths that you could go down. I do think efficiency for breeders has to be one of the top inspirations of the design. So like the breeder needs a quick way to like change the substrate and maybe look for eggs. So maybe like a sliding bottom or something like that, right? To where you can slide the bottom out, check for eggs, change the substrate, do whatever you need to do, slide the bottom back in, and that's unaffected by like the top. I don't know, I've thought about this a little bit, but I think something like that would be possible, right? And I think we're going to start to see stuff like that. Um, I started brainstorming on some rack ideas where I can slide a tub out and slide it in, even though there's a bulb like on the top of the rack, right? The PVC rack shining like some UV or a little bit of heat down there or something. So there's a lot of directions that this can go. But sorry, I just forget why I went down that hole. Newer style keeping is having a huge influence on the hobby. So it's no longer just about how much can I invest and how much can I get back? What cool combos can I make? But it's about how cool of a setup can I make? And that is one thing that Brian did fantastically at the end of his career, which I still think his career is not ended because his legacy truly is living on in all of his videos, content that he did in the Reptarium, which kind of shows the best side of keeping and working with reptiles, giving them the best enrichment, the most attentive care, like target training them, snake massages. I don't know if that's, if you ever saw that, but he had like a snake massage room where large constrictors would crawl over you, and it's very therapeutic, birthday parties, all that kind of stuff. So let me look back on my list here. But that's the side of reptiles that I think is the future for sure. Is the best looking side, right? Oh, funny. But that was my the next point. Show the best side of the hobby. So content creators now are going to be held completely, content creators and breeders and keepers are going to be held completely to showing the best side of the hobby, or you're going to find extreme pushback, right? So it would be smart and wise for newer breeders or even existing breeders such as myself to change and improve, right? When I took business classes in college, there was a class that I took, which was called observational change, something. But anyway, it discussed how every company needs to continuously change. It might have even been called like continuous change or something like that. But you have to change, you have to adapt, you have to look to get better, you look to be more relatable to the generation at hand, and that's only going to be better for you and your relationships as well as the animals, right? And that's like why everyone is in this hobby is 100% for the animals. I don't know anybody in this hobby for the drama, because although the drama in this hobby is fantastic, there's a lot of it, right? It's not as great as the drama in the religious world or the political world. So if somebody really wanted drama, they would go to those two outlets, because those are by far the most dramatic outlets, politics and religion, right? But the reptile world does, people coming into the reptile world, they care about the reptiles. They love these little dinosaurs and little creatures, and they just want to see the best for them, right? And so I am sorry that at times over the last few years, I have not done the greatest job of showing the best side of the industry, right? Or getting along with everybody, or humbling myself to and respecting the opinions of others and the perspectives of others. And I'm sorry about that. I really hope to change that. If you are one of those people that has happened with, I hope that we can bridge ground. I hope that I can show you that, I am ready to listen and make changes and work towards the betterment of our hobby as a whole. Let's see. I got one last point here. Continuous improvement. I think that was what the name of the class was, continuous improvement or continuous change. So I'm trying to think if I covered, over this last week, after I had my conversation with this person who I would actually consider a friend now, we we were friends and then things got a little rocky, but I would like to think after the last conversation that we've begun to build a friendship back again, and I hope that they see it the same way. Um, I hope to have accountability partners. I hope you would be my accountability partner. Our fans and followers would hold us accountable, as well as the people who have been most critical of us. I hope that they would still hold us accountable. Um, I do think that there is a good way to go about accountability, and maybe I didn't make it that easy in the beginning for people to feel like they could come to me in a good way. So there was a lot of like very stance opinions or decisions that were being asked of me to be made. Um I do think that if you are going to correct somebody or work with somebody, just having a little bit of grace in your mind and in understanding and patience with that person, that's going to go a long way as well. But ultimately at the end of the day, that person needs to make the decision to listen, you know? And there were just a lot of things that I did not listen about, right? And that's what I really am sorry for, because um it's led us to where we are today. Cancel culture, you know, um just a friction, right? A friction with others in the hobby that you don't want. Um because ultimately at the end of the day, you want to get along with everybody. There's so many reasons to get along with everybody. Uh, th- Besides the fact of just being like a good human, there's so many reasons you want to get along with everybody in this hobby. It makes the hobby look better. It brings more business to both ends, because both people will be collabing and both fan groups will be interacting with each other. And again, people need diversity. It's not a matter of wanting diversity, it's a matter of needing diversity, especially in the leopard gecko world where so many lines are very like heavily inbred already. You want to be diversifying and recommending other breeders that your customers can go to for diversification of genetics, and then that person's customers get recommended to you. So then there's more diversification going on. It just makes for a good, fun hobby, right? And that's why people are here, to have fun, drama free, care about the reptiles. So, if there's anything that I can do to push towards that direction, that's what I want to do. And thank you to the people who have stuck it out with me, the people who have listened to me, the people who have heard me. There goes my little cat walking there. Um, but ultimately, at the end of the day, like, changes need to be made on my part. And I do understand that. But I would like for accountability partners and peers in this hobby to help with that, right? Because it's not always easy yourself, like especially when you've been doing things for so long in one specific way. It's hard for you to realize, you know, when something might not come across correctly or when you might be wrong about something. There were times in some of my old videos where like I said that a certain genetic trait came from one person when it really came from another person. And those are the things that you need to be corrected on if you're unaware. That way you can put out the proper information. So I just hope that we can work together. Um, from my side of things, I'm very sorry for making it more difficult to work with me, to some of these people who tried to work with me in the beginning. I know I was really gung ho and just like pushing in the direction that I wanted to go no matter what. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it led me to a place where having friction with others is not the end goal and is not what I want. So I thank you to the people who are having a change of heart and being willing to work with me. And I hope to everybody. I know it's going to be more difficult for some than others because there's been more bad blood, so to speak, right? Between like me and some compared to me and others. Um, and I understand that, but I'm hoping that we can, you know, um, use this as an opportunity to move forward. I'm asking that of you, you know, and I'm asking you to, you know, forgive me for the times that I haven't been the most listenable. I keep using that word, even though I know that's not a word, even though I haven't, you know, proven to be somebody that, you know, would listen. So I hope that you accept that. Um, and I hope that we can move forward. I know that we probably still have each other blocked in certain areas. So if I have you blocked or you have me blocked, I hope that if that's the line of communication that needs to be open, like my phone number's right here. My phone number's not blocked to anybody. The 480-299-7657. You could either call me or text me. And then, you know, if we're able to resolve things, we can like unblock each other from social media. But I think that is it. Let me see if I missed anything here. Betterment of the hobby, accountability is a good thing. So just kind of ending, why is cancel culture good? It actually holds people accountable to the more accepted practices of the time in the hobby. And I see that for me personally, I see that now and I welcome that. And I just thank you to the people that have helped me see that, and the people who have spoken to me over these last, you know, couple months, and I've had different conversations that have been fruitful and beneficial. And although it kind of took me a long time to see this, now I've been on YouTube for 6 years or 5 years or something like that, since my earliest videos. But I would say the more frictionless type content came around like 3-4 years ago, which is still a long time, you know. um it has certainly felt like a long journey at times and a lonely journey at times. And that's not how I want it to feel. So I really hope that you can understand that like I am being sincere in this, and I thank you for the people that have been involved as a whole. Um you know, making reports on it and like calling out like my ball python leopard gecko video and other things that they have felt very passionate about over the years. I thank you guys for calling that out, because without that, I wouldn't be at a place where like I desired to change right now. If that makes sense, I would still be stuck in like that old mindset. Also, I think that that correction, that accountability, that cancel culture type mentality can be beneficial to others in the future who refuse to change and who do things in the reptile world that are pretty controversial, right? It almost like forces them to change. Now, I do think there's a graceful way to go about it all, but nobody's perfect, right? So I don't hold it against, or at least that in my self-reflection, I would like to think I don't hold it against anybody, the ways that people have approached me in the past and the things that have conspired. Um, but I do think like moving forward that there is a better way to cancel each other or hold each other accountable, rather than maybe just painting somebody in like the worst light possible. That's just a thought. Maybe comment below what you think about that. Maybe you think painting somebody in the worst light possible is the only way that they're going to change, and you feel like that's the right decision to make. But regardless, for me and where I am right now, I'm actually really excited and hopeful to build bridges, to make amends where amends can be made, and to be a better and improving representation for reptile culture and the reptile hobby moving forward, because reptiles truly are amazing and I love working with these animals, and I hope to continue to collaborate with others who love the same as well. So, thank you guys so much for hearing me out. I really would love to know your opinions below. You could always call or text me or email me. My email is down here in the description below, or you could go to my website and email me from there as well. So, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Um, yeah, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, I hope that you guys have a geeky gecko great day. Peace.